Ladies and gentlemen, I do not think EA is having a lot of fun right now. The developers there are probably going through one of their worst existential crises that they've ever experienced before because they're getting laid off left and right. No one there can predict who's going to be next on the chopping block, and it must be horrifying for them right now. It's like these developers are in a battle royale, except whenever they lose, they get fired from their job and their whole studio shuts down. Now, I'm not saying that I'm celebrating these people losing their jobs, but after seeing what kind of games they made, I can kind of see why. A lot of them were pretty garbage, and the executives over at EA were probably at their wits' end with these expensive projects. One such case was with Dragon Age The Veilguard, a game that was released last year that every single major gaming publication was praising like it was the second coming of Jesus. It was receiving 9s and 10s all across the board, and every reviewer was touting it as Bioware's quote-unquote return to form. If we gamers didn't know any better, we would have believed that this game was the best Dragon Age ever, but luckily we saw through all of their BS. We saw through their horrible astroturfing attempt to make this title seem like it was way better than it actually was. Because when the game finally launched a few days after the reviews did, people quickly realized that the game was nowhere near the quality that the reviewers were saying it was. We found out that Dragon Age The Veilguard was actually a subpar RPG with a poorly written story and below average gameplay. There was a huge disparity between the gaming publication reviews and the average user scores from normal people, and once the game came out, it was a complete flop with the average gamer audience, selling for less than 2 million copies 60 days after launch. It was so bad that even EA themselves said that Dragon Age The Veilguard sold well below their expectations, which led to many developers on that team getting laid off, including the lead director. However, the biggest problem with this whole situation is that they still have no idea why this game failed. They still think that it flopped because of a targeted AntiWoke campaign to slander the game due to its progressive messaging and characters, calling everyone who disliked it really bad people and saying that they just wanted to see Bioware fail. Now here's where I have a problem with what was said here. I'm sure there were people who wanted to see Dragon Age The Veilguard fail for the sole reason of it having progressive messaging in it. I'm not denying that. But to say that everyone who criticized Veilguard and thought it was a terrible Dragon Age game were really bad people who wanted to see Bioware fail is very disingenuous and an out-of-touch statement. The amount of people who wanted to see Bioware fail was such a small vocal minority of the audience. Most of the criticism came from either actual concerned Bioware fans who were disappointed in the direction that Veilguard took, or they're from regular gamers who just didn't think that was a very good title. Either way, just blanket labeling everyone who didn't like this entry as really bad people isn't really a good look because it handwaves all of the legitimate criticisms people had about this game, and trust me, as someone who played through it, there were plenty. The combat was subpar, the story was generic, the writing was contrived, the art style was visually unappealing, and worst of all, the characters were horribly unlikable.
Here, vegetables. Thank you. So, I'm non-binary.
Who the fuck starts a conversation like that? I just sat down.
Best part is, while Tasha's pounding that snake's nose, she's still holding the ruby in her other hand. Maker's panties, I was so proud.
Oh,
Ah, shit. They're still holding it, sorry.
what are you doing?
Pulling a barb.
Oh, okay. A barb?
Tradition in the Lords of Fortune, from one of our old members, Barv. Good guy, but like most of us, his plans went sideways a lot. Bad blood among your crew's not good for morale, but there's not always time for big drawn-out apologies. So, when one of us screws up and we know we've screwed up, we do a quick 10 to put it right. Pulling a Barv.
It's actually baffling to me how much of a colossal disaster this game turned out to be, because Bioware was supposed to be one of EA's most decorated studios. They were supposed to be the ones that we knew would definitely put out a high quality game. Every reviewer said that this was Bioware's return to form, but if you played it for yourself, you would know that Veilguard is the farthest thing from Bioware's golden days. In fact, it's just another point on the timeline of their long history of failures, which has been happening for over 10 years now, with examples such as Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem. The fact that they still haven't figured it out even after 10 plus years is completely astounding to me. And it looks like they're going to continue making these mistakes because the CEO of EA, Andrew Wilson, believed that the reason why Veilguard failed was due to its lack of shared world features and deeper engagement, which is a bunch of corporate speak for the lack of live service elements and microtransactions, because we all know that's what he really means. He thinks that we're all just cash cows waiting to be endlessly milked for their sweet, sweet profit margins. And in a recent interview with ex-Dragon Age writer, they all but confirmed that EA did not in fact have any respect for their audience. Who would have guessed? Saying that we were just nerds in a cave who will always show up for any RPG that Bioware puts out. And it was imperative that they focus on catering towards the larger audience who are much bigger in size. That's crazy. They literally admitted that they want to cater towards this mythical modern audience that they believe so much in, rather than their very own loyal fans. This is how little these executives think of gamers. They think that we're all just NPCs who consume product and wait patiently for next product. Hey, that might be true for Madden and FIFA fans, but not us. We neckbeard basement dwellers take pride in being autistically picky about the kind of content we consume. Brand loyalty nowadays is dead, and these AAA companies killed it. These megacorporations think that they can take their fanbase for granted and simply discard them whenever they want to because they believe that we will always show up no matter what. Their failure was brought upon them by their own hubris. And well, they reap what they sow because now they've had to downsize their company to less than 100 developers who are now currently producing Mass Effect 5, which could very well be their last chance before EA sends them to the chopping block. Man, it must be a nightmare to work at EA right now. I can't even imagine the mental toll that they have to go through every day whenever they walk into the office and they don't even know if they'll have a job by the end of the day. The morale over at the EA studios right now must be at an all-time low because the executives have been on a rampage lately with the layoffs, and recently they just added yet another victim to their very long list of killed studios. About a week ago, EA had just shut down Cliffhanger Games, who are working on an upcoming unannounced Black Panther game for around 4 years now. Yeah, that's not a very good look for your team. Anyways, I know it sucks that hundreds of people lost their jobs, but after looking a bit deeper into it, I can kinda see why EA shut down the studio. Apparently, according to some gaming news sites, this Black Panther game was in development hell because it spent 4 years in pre-production, which is insane because games on average spend about 6 months to a year in pre-production. 4 years is absolutely wild. That would mean that for the entire lifespan of the studio, they have barely made any progress towards developing the game because they were established exactly 4 years ago. This was supposed to be their first official title that they've ever released, but for some reason, development hasn't really budged an inch since they've started. What the hell were they doing all this time? Like, I hate EA as much as the next guy, but let's be realistic here. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars to establish this studio and hire hundreds of developers, some of them being industry veterans, in order to hopefully make a return on their investment. If they still haven't been able to make any progress after 4 years of development, meanwhile millions of dollars are still being spent every day to keep this studio running, then I'm not all too surprised that EA became frustrated with the future of this game. And that's after they just laid off hundreds of other employees at other studios as well, because before this, they had just cancelled multiple other unannounced projects over at Respawn Entertainment, one of them supposedly being Titanfall 3. It really sucks that we may possibly never get a Titanfall 3 ever in the future because this franchise was actually one of the only good ones that EA had in the catalog. So any hopes of that are completely dashed out of existence now, and because of that, morale at Respawn is reportedly at an all-time low. This puts into question the future of AAA titles that are currently in production over at EA. At best, I feel like a lot of them are pretty shaky because, well, Mass Effect 5 is probably still being developed by mostly the same team that made Dragon Age The Veilguard, which doesn't really inspire a lot of confidence in me, to be honest. And Respawn is probably just relegated to solely developing Apex Legends and whatever the next Star Wars game is gonna be. Other than that, what else does EA have in production right now? Madden? FIFA? Ugh. Sports games? Not for me. Anyways, what do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down below and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.